Good evening, everyone. This is Pastor Anthony here with the DailyExcellence. Thank you guys so much for coming on the channel, being a part of our broadcast this evening. It is May the 5th. It is Cinco de Mayo Day. So those of you, especially down in the southern part of the U.S., enjoying, hopefully, some good Hispanic food today and enjoying your Cinco de Mayo today. But those of us up north, where I'm at, Cinco de Mayo is not much of a day, so not much celebration going on in this part of the world. But anyway, we're glad that you guys are here. Please do me a favor because, they don't like to get our notifications out very well. So please, those of you that are coming on, give us a like, share, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, do whatever you can to help push those algos or let people know on your personal platform, especially those that you know that do watch us. Hey, we're on, we're live, we're doing this thing tonight, and we will greatly appreciate this evening. So thank you guys so much. It's good to be here with you guys. A little cold here in our neck of the woods, but hopefully that'll change in a few days. Would love to get a little bit more summery weather going around here, but it's still kind of cold. So that being said, tonight's title is this, Endtimes News Update. We're kind of sticking with this theme. We're going to be discussing a couple earthquakes tonight. New virus, for those of you that have been following that cruise ship that's stranded off the coast of Africa with a virus situation going on there. We're going to take a look at that. Famine. Starting to hear a lot more about famines. And of course, we talked about that last week about some droughts, but now we're talking about a potential famine that could be global due to what we got going on in the Middle East right now. So we've got that going on. AI doing its thing and falsely identifying people in retail stores, and people are having a hard time proving their innocence because of a glitch in the AI system. We're going to take a look at all of these things tonight as we have many different subjects here. Of course, you can see that earthquakes, famines, pestilence, beast system, all converging at the same time. It's starting to look a lot like the end times, isn't it? So we're going to have that discussion, look at some articles here in just a moment. Before we get into that, though, we're going to go through and do our roll call tonight, and we have Texas Girl 907, good evening, stating, has anyone noticed another big spike in gas prices today? I have not checked the gas prices in our area, but I know last week we were approaching $5 a gallon where we are at, and that was a sticker shock for me because just the day before it was like $1 less. So yes, we got Jason Torres, good to have you on tonight. Kathleen Veglio, one of our moderators, good to have you on this evening. Denny Salino, good to have you with us. Thank you for your work over there on Twitter X, getting that stuff out for us. We got Venus Sage with us tonight. Thank you so much. Who else we got? Looks like I got everybody so far. Over here, of course, we got a good little crowd developing over on Rumble this evening. And let me go check and see if anyone is watching us over on X tonight. And yeah, we've got quite a few of you guys watching us over on X this evening too. So thank you all for being here and being a part of our broadcast and sharing those links. Please go out, share those links on our platforms, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble tonight, and I think I said X, I don't remember. But yes, if you're over on X as well, all those things, very, very important for us. Greatly appreciate. So we're going to get into those topics here in just a moment. First, we're going to let our sponsor, EMP Shield, do their thing for about 60 seconds, and we'll be right back with you guys. Hold on. Something just messed up here. Give me just a second, guys.
With over 37 models that can be used around the world, our family of EMP protection devices installs easily in minutes. Being employed this year by federal organizations and electrical companies, the EMP Shield has been tested at Keystone Compliance, a federally approved DoD testing facility. Also serving as one of the world's fastest whole-home surge protection devices, working in less than 1 nanosecond, the EMP Shield will protect against electromagnetic pulses, coronal mass ejections, lightning, and all forms of power surges. Proven to withstand more than 40 EMP strikes with zero degradation, the EMP Shield is also one of the world's strongest surge protectors, capable of withstanding over 100,000 amps.
All right, guys, that is EMP Shield. Go to empshield.com, get your device today. Protect your home, protect your car, protect your generator, whatever it is from electromagnetic pulses, which can come from lightning, can come from activity from the sun, which we have a lot of activity on the way from the sun, so maybe not a bad idea to check that out. But whatever it may be, it will protect it. It's a great device made here in the United States. We have one of the best discounts here on YouTube. So go there, use promo code DAILY, get $50 off of your device, and you will not regret it. Of course, not only do you protect your own home, but you also support us here on Daily Excellence. So thank you guys so much for doing that this evening. All right, let me get a drink of water real quick, because I got a lot of reading to do tonight. All right, Dean Lovett, 2277, good to have you with us. Thank you for being on tonight. John Van Bell, good to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. All right, let's get into some of these articles that we were talking about tonight. If I can get things to work here. And we'll start off with this virus that's kind of been making the news a little bit. There's this cruise ship that's kind of stuck off the coast of Africa that's been making some news, and it's the World Health Organization warns that the human-to-human transmission may have been on board the hantavirus, okay, on a cruise ship there. And it says that World Health officials are investigating a deadly hantavirus outbreak on the MV Honduras, with the World Health Organization warning that limited human-to-human spread cannot be ruled out among close connections. So let's see if we can get further into this, because there's not too much more about the article about that one on here anyway, but I did read some of this earlier today. So basically what is happening is this cruise ship was coming from South America. I want to say it was coming from Argentina area on its way to Africa. I think it's about 150 people on board this cruise ship, give or take. And somebody got onto the ship with this virus. 2 people are currently affected by it. And it can be spread human to human by water droplets or water vapor going through the ventilation system, things like that. Close contact type of situation with this virus, but it is lethal. It can kill people. One of the big problems here is it starts off with a pretty high fever, and so there is no real cure for this. But as of right now, there seems to be only 2 people. Of course, they're not allowed to dock anywhere because of spread. Ports in the area have closed them off, and so this is something we're watching. The World Health Organization states that there's nothing to be concerned with. There's no need to shut down any countries, restrict any type of travel or anything like that. But I've never heard of this hantavirus. So it is something we should keep an eye on, because you never know what could happen. Those of us, we remember Wuhan back in 2019 and how that affected us in 2020 and 2021. And so this is one of those things, just kind of keep an eye on, see what happens. But the World Health Organization states that they are aware of the situation and working on a plan to evacuate those who are not affected and treat those who have been affected. So that's what's going on there with that particular piece of news. Belinda Repose, no worries. Yes, they don't do notifications for our channel anymore. So Denny Salinas says the hantavirus is spread through mice. I've learned this from the X-Files movie in 1998. I do remember that show, the X-Files. So let's see what else we got going on here in our world today. We had a 6.0 earthquake that took place yesterday in southern Mexico. That kind of made the news. A sharp earthquake rattled southern Mexico on Monday morning, triggering emergency alerts and building evacuations far away as the capital. Official reports, no immediate casualties or major structural damage. According to a report from Reuters, the tremor struck at a relatively shallow depth, sending waves of alarm through a seismically active region. Mexico's National Seismology Institute registered the quake at 5.4, centered 24 kilometers or about 15 miles northwest of Patoma, Aquino, Ascot. I don't even know how to pronounce that, guys. At the depth of just 9 kilometers. Okay, Mexican President Claudia moved quickly to reassure public that there were no immediate reports of victims or damage, as she stated in a post on social media. The quake activated Mexico City's seismic alarm, prompting residents to rush outside buildings into an orderly evacuation, capturing images of people waiting on benches and streets. While the shaking was felt across a wide area, initial assessments pointed to limited impact. So, quake there in southern Mexico. We also had an earthquake here in Michigan, in the southern part of the state earlier. I think it was earlier this morning that took place. And a lot of this is taking place. We're getting a lot of reports of earthquakes today, and that is because of some activity that we do have coming from the sun. Let me see if I can pull that up here, because we haven't done this in quite a while. Give me just a second here. Here we go. And that's basically because of this scenario that's taken place. We have wind speeds, have solar winds coming in at 353 miles per hour, or 353.2 kilometers per second. Not too far from the normal, but we had a surprise geomagnetic storm, a minor yet effective interplanetary shock wave that hit Earth's magnetic field yesterday on May 4th. So that's why we had a lot of earthquakes around the globe yesterday, sparking a G2 class moderate geomagnetic storms and auroras. The source of the shock wave is uncertain, probably a stealthy CME that left the sun last week. Minor G1 class storms are likely on May 5th as we transit the CME's magnetized awake. Okay. And then, of course, an article that's come out today, and this is something that I think Paul Begley and Mike from Council Time are going to talk about Thursday night. Got this feeling. Are we overdue for a super flare? We've all heard of X-class solar flares, powerful explosions on the sun that pepper satellites with energetic particles and trigger great geomagnetic storms. They can be scary, but not as scary as a new category of solar flare being discussed by researchers, the S-flare, a solar super flare stronger than 10 times. Okay, so why are they bringing up this new classification of the solar flare? X-flares have pretty much been the measurement. You know, S-flares, X-flares, C-flares, things like that. But now we're talking about the S-flare. This is a new classification, and they're talking about that these are super flares stronger than 10 times. This would be 10 times larger than any type of X-flare that would come our direction. So what do they know that we don't know? What's taking place on the sun that we can't see? We've all known for quite some time that there's been concerns with the sun and the activity that's going on there. So what are they projecting that we don't see? Good questions. Hopefully we'll get some answers. Of course, we've got several sunspots. We got AR4431 Earth facing right now. And just kind of, it's been a while since I've explained this, but anytime you get a Earth facing image, okay, let me see if I can, there we go. Anytime you get like an Earth-facing image, the way you want to look at this and see if it really is Earth-facing is kind of draw an imaginary equator across the sun like this. Okay, well, here we go. Draw an imaginary equator across the sun like this. And anything that kind of rides along that equator or south is Earth facing. So AR4428 was Earth facing, that just left. AR4429 is Earth facing. AR4431 is Earth facing. And this new one that's coming on, that is AR4433. This is Earth facing. So we have got a lot of Earth facing solar activity right now, which means there's a lot of opportunities for CMEs and solar flares and things like that. So whenever you see this kind of a graph right here with these solar flares being labeled, if you want to know which one is Earth facing, which one is something you should be concerned about, pray about, whatever you decide to do with that, then this is how you do it. Make an imaginary line right across here through the center of the sun, and then anything that's equator and south, those are Earth facing. Okay, so that's how that works there. Let me bring it back to the camera here. There we go. And so anyway, that's what's going on with that, with the solar flare. So that's why we're seeing a lot of earthquakes right now. And of course, that would fit into an end time sign of signs in the heavens this evening, spoken about in Matthew 24, Luke 21. And of course, we see that the sun plays a huge part in end times prophecy when we get into the book of Revelation, especially as we get into the bowls and we get into the trumpets and the seals and the thunders and all of those. The sun plays a big part in really all of it. So that kind of matches up with the immense amount of activity that we are seeing on our sun this evening. Okay. Something kind of crazy on the economic forum today. And we'll pull this up. Congress has, in what I call a desperate, very, very, very desperate attempt to generate some votes, their direction in the midterms, members of Congress are introducing a bill to raise minimum wage to, $25 an hour. And I guess, of course, you see who the main speaker of that is, right? So a group of four Democratic lawmakers introduced a living wage for all act aiming at drastically increasing the federal minimum wage from its current $7.24 level to $25 an hour. The bill was unveiled on April 28th, just days ahead of the nationwide May Day labor mobilizations. Representative Jose Chovy Garcia of Illinois' 4th District, Dalcia Ramirez of Illinois' 3rd District, Latifa Simeon of California's 12th District, and so I can't even pronounce that, Majah of New Jersey's 11th District, put forward a measure in partnership with economic justice, civil rights, and labor organizations. Lawmakers argue that $25 figure represents the wage necessary for workers to cover basic living expenses across the United States. The proposal includes a phased rollout. Larger employers with those with 500 or more workers or $1 billion in annual gross revenue would face a higher standard by 2021, while smaller businesses would have until 2038 to comply. Additional provisions target vulnerable groups, tipped workers, current subject to the federal minimum wage cash way of just $2.3 per hour, would see a base raise to initially $6. Youth workers would also start at $6 an hour, and employees with disabilities at $5 an hour. The minimum wage would remain unchanged at $2.25 since 2009, even as many states have enacted higher local thresholds aimed at ongoing concerns of affordability and economic pressures. Before becoming law, the legislation must navigate multiple committee reviews and voting grounds in Congress. Its introduction highlights intensifying national debt debates over wage standards and work protections at a time when cost of living challenges continue to dominate public discourse. So, yeah, the minimum wage. Most states are generally in between like $10 and $15 now. I don't think any state actually has the $7.25 rule for those. So the base pay for most jobs these days is in between the $15 and $20 range already. However, from my personal perspective, I think this is just a ploy to really generate some votes within the midterms coming around, stating, hey, if you vote for us, we're going to try to get you $25 an hour. Now, here's the kicker about this. This is one of the few times, this might be the only time, that honestly, they would, with current inflation the way it is, and the food prices and the gas prices and everything going up, they're actually not wrong on this price. $25 an hour would cover basic needs for a family. They're right on that. I mean, I hate to say it, but they are actually correct on this. And even then, I don't even think it would cover it, honestly. But here's the thing about it. One, do you trust the people in charge who are trying to do this? I personally don't. Secondly is, by the time this thing would fully go into effect, they're talking about 2038, okay? 2038 is when it finally would go into effect, so that means you got to wait 11 years. For some of you, would have to wait 11 years to get to that $25 an hour threshold. Well, by then, minimum wage or the wage of living costs could be $40 an hour by the time you reach that, which means you're in the same boat in 2038 as you are currently right now. So, use a little skull to brain technology when you start seeing things like this and you start going out to vote. Hey, these guys are going to do this. No, not yet. This ain't going to happen for 11 more years. And when it finally does happen, you're still going to be in the same state that you are, because at $25 is going to equal what you're getting now at $15 or $14 an hour. Okay. That's just my personal opinion on this. I'm not a financial expert and I'm not an economist. Okay. And so I don't have anything like that, but I saw that and I'm like, a lot of people are going to look at that. People who are, people who are, less knowledgeable when it comes to economics and how the government works. But this is definitely a honey trap, to say the least, to get people to come in and vote and putting that big old $25 an hour wage when really it's going to take 11 years for that wage to be met, which in 11 years from now, that's probably going to already be the normal rate for people working jobs anyway, with the way things are going. Like I said, most people right now are already making between $15 and $20 an hour. By time 2038, if we're still rotating and around this earth, that's probably going to be the wage anyway. Okay, so exactly, $25 an hour by then will be poverty level. So don't fall for this trick, okay? Because we're already heading that direction anyway. We don't need to vote on this. It's just the way our economy is doing. So just want to throw that out there and give a little take on that, okay? All right, let's bring it back over to me. Get to the next article here. Let's talk about AI this evening, and then we'll get into there's some news about the famine. Maybe some things you guys haven't discussed yet, okay? So some AI stuff going on here. Shoppers falsely identified by facial recognition system struggle to clear their names as they are guilty until proven innocent. Here we go. This is as of May 3rd, so this came out this week. According to a report from The Guardian, innocent customers across the UK are being wrongly accused of shoplifting by FaceWatch, a live facial recognition system rapidly expanding in retail stores, leaving them shamed in public with little recourse to clear their names. In one incident last February, retired health and safety professional Ian Clayton entered a home bargain store in Chester for a routine lunchtime stop. A staff member abruptly ordered him to put down his items and leave, informing him that FaceWatch had ID'd him as a known shoplifter. Stunned and escorted out past the tills, Clayton was handed a QR code and left standing outside with no further explanation. FaceWatch claims a 99.98 accuracy rate and sent over 50,000 alerts to retailers, including BM, which is Home Bargains, Sainsbury's, and others last month alone. Yet, affected individuals describe the system that presumes guilty, offers scant support for challenges, and provides no clear path to restitution. It was like I was guilty until proven innocent. It was awful feeling, Clayton 67 told The Guardian. It feels very Orwellian. You guys remember that book by Orwell, 1984? He only uncovered the error through a formal subject access request, revealing a mistake link to a prior visit. Home Bargain later apologized with a £100, I guess, or €100 voucher, which he rejected anally and confidentially conditioned. Let's see. Similar ordeals have unfolded elsewhere. In southern London, or South London, data strategist Warren Rajar was asked to abandon his basket at Sainsbury's after a false alert, later confirmed as a human error by staff. For me, this is a civil rights issue, he said. Who is regulating these companies? No one has actually defined what your recourse is when something goes wrong. In Birmingham, Jenny Sanders was publicly escorted around a B&B store, B&M store, by security before being removed. She later learned that she had been wrongly listed for theft. I thought I'm going to be treated like a shoplifter in every store. Sanders recalled describing lasting distress and avoidance of monitored shops. UK biometric dog watchers have warned that oversight lags behind the technology's rollout, aimed at known issues with higher error rates for certain ethnic groups and women. So basically what we got going on here is in the United Kingdom, over in Europe, they've got this program called FaceWatch. And so this program helps to ID people using biometrics and facial scans, goes to ID those who are already known on a list for being a shoplifter or any other type of crimes allegedly. And so this will notify security people in department stores or managers or whoever, hey, this person's in your store, and then they will escort that person out of the store because they are pretty much banned from any store that has this type of software. So it's supposed to be a deterrent, and it's supposed to keep people from stealing and things like that in the stores. As you can see, based upon this article, however, that there's definitely some errors in this, and that people are being placed on these watch lists that aren't supposed to be there, or the facial recognition is reading people the wrong way. And so kind of some scary stuff going on here. That, you know, once you walk into a store, you know, you're being ID'd and being, you know, kind of profiled, so to speak. And the article brings up a good question. Who's running this? Like, who has oversight in this? Who has oversight in this AI program? Who's running this thing? Who's double checking to make sure this software is correct? And it doesn't look like anybody is. And so you have an AI system that's kind of just running out there loose, IDing people and accusing people. And because the AI says you did it, you're already guilty without being able to clear your name. And it's like what the article stated here, you're guilty until proven innocent. And so this does kind of bring in a, you know, an Orwell type of situation that we read in 1984. The book that came out in 1984 from George Orwell. That's the state we're living in. Of course, we know this technology. We've been talking about this technology for years, okay? For several years. We've been talking about how this is going to unfold. You know, China's been using this facial recognition software for years. Pastors behind the pulpits have facial recognition and audio that the government monitors in China. We know that this is coming, and it won't be long. It'll be here in the United States as well. This is the technology that is on its way. Other countries are doing it. Won't be long. We will have the same thing here in the United States. Of course, the argument will come out. I can already hear it now. One, we can't afford law enforcement. So AI helps be able to police the people without actual police. Okay? AI, drones, robots, things like that. If it can identify someone who steals before they steal, it lowers shrink. It lowers loss prevention. Keeps prices from going up. Helps inflation. Strengthens the economy. Okay? They'll use the argument that this will keep prices from spiking in the store for people who are already struggling. You can see where they're going to sugarcoat this thing and make it look like a good thing so that people will accept it. They're going to give it a nice little package. I'm sure here it'll be labeled something else other than Face Watch. It'll probably be something like Nanny Cam. Okay. But this is what is going on here. And the UK, of course, the UK's really been doing some serious leaps and jumps with their AI system and their governance of people and with their, national ID and things like that. Of course, I think it was last week or the week before last, we reported that Mexico is now beginning to get on board with a national ID in their country as well. So, but that is a beast system technology. And that is how in the last days they are going to keep track of Christians, okay? They're going to keep track of people who don't fit the globalist narrative or agenda by using technologies like this. So if you're a good global citizen, you'll be fine. If you're a bad global citizen, you're going to be ID'd on the streets, in the stores. You'll be ID'd at home through the use of drones and satellite technology combined with blockchain technology at your bank and with, of course, heat signature technology, vocal technology, all wrapped in under the umbrella of an AI, artificial intelligence system. You will be able to run, but you won't be able to hide. Okay, that's where this is going. So, and that's in my personal opinion, by the way, personal opinion. Okay, remember everything we discuss on these nights is under the umbrella of hypothesis and personal opinion, not stating facts. Okay, according to the guidelines for our platform here tonight. All right, let's take a look at another particular issue that we've got going on here. Let's see. We had an article I wanted to read here tonight, and now I don't see it on here. Give me just a second here. Okay, here we go. Welcome all of you guys that are just popping on, by the way. Let's see, Orange Alert. Good to have you on with us tonight. Thank you for being here. We got Jasquel. Thank you for being here. Alicia. Thank you for coming on. Donna Jasmine. Soul Reactivator. Good to see you this evening. Bunch of you guys popping on here on the channel. Thank you so much for coming in. Please, as you guys are entering in, give us a like, share, subscribe. Give us those thumbs up. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And, of course, those of you over on X, good to see you tonight. And yes, no offense, but the Earth is not flat. It is round. Always fun when we get our flat earthers in the chat room there. So, okay. Going on to the next article here. Boom. World Central Kitchen founder warns of multi-year world famine from Iran war. Okay, so this is kind of what this is. This is a nice little draw up from Chat GPT. Okay, I've seen these things. I've been learning how to use that for our stuff. So nice little draw up there. According to a report from The Guardian, celebrity chef and humanitarian Jose Andrews, founder of the World Central Kitchen, has issued a stark alert about the unintended consequences of the ongoing war involving Iran. Speaking on the sidelines of the Scamfers Global Economy Conference in Washington, Andres urges world leaders to shift focus from oil markets to the fragile global food supply chains now at risk. Disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping choke point, have triggered nitrogen fertilizer supply lines, driving up costs for farmers worldwide and threatening harvests in years ahead. Now I'm going to pause right here, okay? Because it really wasn't that long ago where farmers kind of just depended on their own fertilization, okay? I mean, there was a time where we didn't have to depend on things being sprayed on farmland from planes or having liquid nitrogen fertilizers or anything like that. People just used good old-fashioned manure, and the world ran on that. And cellars were full of food for the winter across our nation just on that. So, this is, you kind of see a little bit of a globalist narrative in my personal opinion on this. Anyway, going back, Andres described a silent collapse of the global fertilizer trade unfolding as a byproduct of the conflict, warning that delays in deliveries could devastate planting seasons and ripple into reduced food production. I'm going to pause again. Guys, remember several years ago, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago now, when the altercation began with Russia and Ukraine, and the same argument came out about how farmers were not going to be able to have the fertilizer for their crops because the Ukrainians produce like 30% or some kind of crazy number of the world's fertilizer, and food prices shot through the roof. Okay, well, that situation hasn't changed any since then. And there's still altercations going on between Russia and the Ukraine. There was a massive attack just last week, but the world got by, okay? But food prices went up because of that information. So here we go again, being told the exact same thing, but just in a different conflict, all right? Just putting that out there. Moving on, I foresee a very big increase in famine across the world by the fall of 2026 and 2027, Andreas told The Guardian. He emphasized that the strait carries more than oil. It is not only oil that leaves through the Strait of Hormuz, he said, it's also heavy fertilizers. The chef highlighted how even modest yields drop in wealthier nations might be absorbed, but vulnerable populations would face catastrophe. In America, you can have a 2% or 3% increase and people will manage, Andreas noted. But in places like Haiti, they don't survive on a kilo of rice. They serve you at an ounce at a time. Those people are going to be suffering the consequences. World Central Kitchen, which has delivered millions of meals in crisis zones, including Gaza and Ukraine, is already feeling the pressure. Rising costs are forcing difficult decisions about scaling back operations despite surging need. Andreas advocated a straightforward solution, a 3% peace tax drawn from the global GDP to fund hunger relief, arguing it would generate aptitude resources compared to escalating military budgets. He contrasts this with current priorities, suggesting leaders too often choose conflict over prevention. So, kind of interesting that this guy's proposing a 3% peace tax drawn from the global GDP. So this is talking like a global tax, okay? A 3% peace tax to help offset the costs that are going to be generated with what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz. Now, here's the thing about this, okay? When you look at the Straits of Hormuz, of course, however you want to, the cause of it, you can say it's Donald Trump's fault, you can say it's America's fault, so on and so forth. However, if it was really that detrimental to the world's food supply, you would think that other countries would come in and make sure those straits are clear. And the world has the power to do it. A nice, strong coalition of nations could come in and completely take over that area, and this thing would be over. But that's not what's happening here. And this kind of segues into the point I want to make about this famine, because the Bible tells us that in Matthew 24 and Luke 21 that there's going to be famines. Now, it doesn't necessarily state what kind of famines. Okay, it doesn't say that there's going to be famines because of pestilences. There's going to be famines just because of earthquakes or just because of weather issues, things like that. Because when you look at it from an agricultural perspective, we've had years where you've had a frost that has wiped out crops for a couple of years, but those farms bounce back, okay? You see where there's been droughts in places and those crops get ruined for a year or two, but those areas bounce back. Everything bounces back to a certain extent. And then there's also, you have the yearly rotations of crops that also help generate more foods. What we're discussing here isn't so much from an agricultural perspective. This is because agriculture, in a certain sense, knows how to adapt to a changing climate, whether people want to believe that or not. Now, we've been taught, even since I was a kid, that global warming would destroy agriculture. The people will starve and die. That's what we've been taught. However, agriculture does adapt. Okay, it does adapt. What we're discussing here is a famine sparked by politics, sparked by a global political issue. Okay, this is what could potentially spark famines. When you have countries going into war with each other, you have resources being poured into those wars. You have blockades going on everywhere. You have disruptions of food. Okay, not that food's not being created, not that oil isn't being pumped. You have disruptions in supply chains, and since the entire world relies on other countries to sustain their resources instead of countries focusing on making their own resources, it causes significant problems in the area of food production, in the area of fertilizer production, and all these things. There's not a shortage of fertilizer. Fertilizer just can't get from point A to point B, okay? Because this is a famine that is manufactured by the hands of man. Not by what people would call nature, not by destruction of agriculture, not by global warming or global cooling, or not by something that the sun has done. This is being manufactured by man, okay? Because if we want to, we can build massive facilities to build indoor agriculture, climate controlled, to keep food production going. We see that, and this is something that's actually happening globally around the world to keep things going. Okay, I mean, like I say, agriculture does adapt to a certain extent. Okay, but when you have political and world leaders with different agendas, and we know what that agenda is, this is what causes starvation. This is what causes famine. This is what causes the problems that we're seeing, and the increase in prices, and the increase in inflation, and the loss of jobs, the increase of poverty. And of course, all those things lead to a famine scenario not made by man, made by global leaders. And this is very important to understand what I'm telling you here, because it's going to be this narrative that is going to help, okay, with other narratives, that is going to help usher in a one world system, okay? Because people are going to be upset. There's going to be a lack of resources, not because those resources aren't available, but because they're not going to be able to get where they need to go. There's a lack of resources. People are going to be hungry. People aren't going to be working. People are going to be upset. Okay, you just see what happens to the population when they're locked down and when they're hungry and they have no money. It's not a good thing. So they're going to be looking for somebody to give them a handout. They're going to be looking for somebody to fill up their bellies. They're going to be looking for somebody to give them a job. They're going to be looking for somebody, and they're not going to be trusting their own government. And when you compound that with every country being in this massive amount of debt, and you compound that with every country going to war with each other and not seeing things eye to eye and doing land grabs and all this stuff, we generate a environment of chaos. And what kind of environment will the world be in when the man of perdition rises, when the Antichrist takes his place? Okay? A place of chaos. And this person's going to come in, and this person is going to have an idea. The world's going to take it, and this is going to be the person that's going to finally fill up those bellies, give out those jobs, give out those money that is needed, and that is going to be what is going to be used to control the population, in my personal opinion. So when we see things about articles like this coming from popular chefs or coming from different weird places, pay attention to it, especially when you start hearing about famines, okay? Look at what it is exactly that's causing the famine. Is it a lack of apples? Is it a lack of meat? Or is it because we can't get fertilizer from the Straits of Hormuz because of a blockade, or we can't get oil from one side of the world to the other because of a war? Oh, these things aren't because the earth shifted. It's because of something manufactured by man, and because, in my personal opinion, a much larger issue and a much bigger narrative in the end. That's my personal opinion on this, okay? So that's my little spiel on that particular scenario as we looked into that. So good to have those of you coming on tonight. We looked at several different issues this evening. We just got done talking about the famine. Of course, Matthew 24, Luke 21 talks about famines, pestilences, and last days. We talked about this virus that's on this cruise ship off the coast of Africa this evening. We talked about AI and how it's falsely identified people in stores, department stores in Britain, falsely IDing them as shoplifters. And of course, the main takeaway from that is that AI is being used more and more in law enforcement. And when you are deemed guilty by AI, there's no way to prove your innocence. It's kind of like if you are you're proven guilty until you're innocent. That's kind of what's happening there. So we discussed that. We talked about some earthquakes and activity coming from the sun in the broadcast here. And that's just for those of you that are coming on. So you may want to, when we come to an end, or you can just backtrack it, listen to all of that. But of course, as you're coming on, as I said before, we greatly appreciate you guys giving us a thumbs up this evening. Let's see here. Give me just a second here. Some weird news coming out. I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to the Muslim takeover going on in Texas, but here's another article here. Taxpayer-funded Texas water park announces Muslim-only day featuring modest dress and halal slaughtered meat. That is right, Allah Noor Indoor Park. This is in Texas. And so this is a city-owned water park in Grand Prairie, Texas, has ignited controversy after announcing an executive event reserved for Muslim attendees to mark Eid. According to a report from the Daily Mail, Epic Waters Indoor Park is set to close its doors to the general public on June 1st for a private celebration organized in partnership with the East Plano Islamic Center. The 80,000 square foot facility, which operated in 2017 at a cost of $88 million to taxpayers through a voter-approved quarter-cent sales tax, will enforce a strict modest dress code aligned with Islamic values. Attendees must adhere to guidelines requiring swimwear that covers appropriately, with recommendations including full covered options for women and children. Halal slaughtered meat will be served, and the event promises a family-friendly atmosphere where men and women swim together, but are expected to uphold Islamic etiquette, including lowering the gaze and practice of modesty or hijab. Posters and the event website described the gathering as Muslims for Muslims only, with tickets starting at $55. The water park's operators emphasized creating a comfortable space for the community, and past participants have shared positive feedback. One attendee, Amand S., noted in a testimony, "I love the modesty and the ashir." The announcement has triggered sharp criticism on social media, with questions swirling over whether a publicly funded venue can legally exclude non-Muslims. Conservative commentator Donna led the pushback, asking, how is a taxpayer-funded, city-owned entity allowed to discriminate against non-Muslims at a water park? She added, there would be literal riots if Muslims were similarly excluded, and we all know that's 100% accurate. So basically what's happening here is that, yes, Texas is a part of America. So there's a lot of things that are going on with this. One is, and I don't know if you guys have paid attention to this, but especially around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Muslim centers have been popping up like crazy. And there's been a massive influx of Islamic and Muslim people of faith coming to the Texas area. There's been setups of Sharia law in these areas. Like I said, a lot of Islamic centers popping up. So the population has just absolutely exploded by the millions in Texas. And so, from Grand Prairie's standpoint, and I'm assuming, just because I've seen what's happened here in Michigan, I'm assuming that they probably have a larger Islamic base there than they do Christian, or than they do even from the aspect of ethnicity. They probably have more Middle Easterners in that city now than they do Caucasians or blacks or Hispanics. And so, thinking from a city manager perspective, if they close it down to the general public, they're really leaving it open for the majority, so they're making a lot of money. Okay, and they're also saying that, hey, you can uphold your values here. They're making a ton of money. It's a money grab is what they're doing, but it's a very scary thing because you're kind of seeing how Islam is taking over little by little, and enforcing their rules. Now, there's nothing wrong with dressing modesty. As Christians, we should be really be careful about the way we dress, but it's more than just that. Okay, what are the Islamic values? Is it Sharia law? What happens if somebody lies in that water park, and Sharia law is part of that Islamic value that particular day in that place. Somebody's gonna get their tongue cut out. Okay, what if somebody steals something from that's the concessions area? Are they going to enact Sharia law because it's Islamic values inside this place and cut someone's hand off? What if a woman is accused of looking at a man in an indecent manner? Are they going to stop the place and stone her to death under Sharia law? Because that would be under Islamic value in this particular place. I'm just raising questions, okay, and raising concerns. And it's probably the same concerns that other people are having when they look at this. How far is this going to go? We understand there's a freedom of religion, but what happens when that religion begins to take over the things that are supposed to be free and public, like this water park in Grand Prairie, Texas? Taxpayer funded, supposed to be open for the general public because it's taxpayer funded, but being closed and being excluded to the infidels and only opened to the Islamic people. That's not, I guarantee you, when they voted on that quarter tax increase, that 25 cents extra that they've been paying on everything, I guarantee you that's not what the people of Grand Prairie had in mind, that they would be ostracized and not allowed to go in so that the Islamic people can come in and do what they want to do. I guarantee you that's not what people voted for. But this is what's happening. This is just one example. But we're seeing this all over the country, and nobody's stopping it. Okay, no one is stopping it. It's being allowed to happen. And here's the thing about this, when we see that we've had people, the influx come in by the millions, well, what did we have happen in the last 4 years? Okay, really even longer than that. Okay, borders have been open. Everybody's been pouring in. People have been focusing on what's going on in South America and coming in, but nobody focused on what was going on in the Canadian border and the people that were coming in from that direction. Nobody focused on what was coming in through the airplanes. All focus was placed on Eagle Pass, Texas. All focus was placed on Brownsville or placed on people trying to come in by boat on Florida, but nobody focused on Canada, and nobody focused on ships and barges coming in on our ports, and nobody focused on air flights coming in from the Middle East. So while all eyes were on the border and building the wall there in Texas, everything else was left unchecked. So you really don't know how many people came in. Just my opinion, okay? It's just my opinion on this. So I can tell you one thing, though. If there is a bright side to this, is I guarantee you the Islamic people are not going to vote for a far left government in the future. You can pretty much guarantee that when these millions of Middle Easterners have voting rights coming up in the midterms and the next election, it's going to show up in the ballots. Okay, so people like AOC may lose their jobs coming up because Islamic people, they don't support some of this weird stuff. Okay. And you know what I'm talking about. So that may be the only bright side to it. But however, they support some other things that are not so good. And they really do attack our freedoms that our country was founded on. So just wanted to share that with you this evening. And of course, I'm not trying to belittle anybody, or I'm not trying to say that all Muslims or all people of Middle Easterns are bad. There are plenty of Middle Easterners who do practice Christianity, especially in Iran. Iran has a large Christian base there. You've got the Kurds who are also very Christian based. There are Middle Eastern pockets that we do have Christian brothers and sisters. So I don't want to make it sound like that because you're Middle Eastern that you are Islamic. It's not true. Okay, so you want to make sure I put that out there for you guys. All right, so. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys this evening. Thank you so much for being here on the channel. We are definitely living in the last days, and so we take Tuesday nights to kind of reflect and see all the news articles of the last few days and how they relate to the Bible. And we see this, we see the globalist agenda, which we know the head of the globalist agenda, in my personal opinion, is the Antichrist himself. I do personally believe the Antichrist himself is alive and walks amongst us. We just don't know who he is because our eyes have not been allowed to see who that is. God hasn't revealed that yet, and it's not time. But I do think that in the back channels, that's who's running the globalist agenda, in my personal opinion. So we see a world with no borders. We see how the political space globally is affecting daily commerce and daily trade, and how we have disruptions and hyperinflation and cost of goods rising, and this man-made manufactured famine going throughout the world, not because there's a lack of oil. We got plenty of oil. Not because there's a lack of agriculture, we can't get food grown. It's because we can't get things from point A to point B. So, but it's still famine, and that is an end times prophecy that there was going to be famines. Of course, we got earthquakes, we got distress in our sun. I showed you what was going on there, and those are the signs in the heavens being discussed. The AI system, the rise of the beast system with artificial intelligence, policing the people without warm bodies in there, using facial recognition software, using biometrics, using heat signatures to determine if you're guilty or not of something that you may or may not have done. It just depends on who's overseeing it. The question is, nobody knows who's overseeing it. And that's a question that's come up every single week, is who's overseeing this and who's controlling it? Nobody knows. Okay, but if you're a Christian, you kind of do know who knows that. Who you do know who's controlling it, right? So, but it's all part of that system that's rising, and it's coming very quickly, especially with this AI stuff. A lot of the things that we're talking about now, we talked about a couple of years ago that this is what the world would be like, and now it's here. Okay, it's here, and it's going to continue going further as we get into a draconian global military state that will happen for all. Okay, we will at some point be under all of this, and you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to serve Jesus Christ, or are you going to go and be a good global citizen? Just my personal opinion and where I see things going. Okay. But anyway, that's my take on things tonight. Like I said, everything that's been discussed this evening from articles and stuff is my personal opinion. It's an opinion broadcast this evening under the umbrella of hypotheses. You take with it, do your own research, read the Bible, and come up and form your own opinion with what you see. Okay? That being said, everyone, have a great evening. God bless you. Thank you for coming to our broadcast tonight. We will be on with you guys tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Pastor Talk Live with myself and my wife. And so you don't want to miss that. If you have any prayer requests, have those handy and ready to put on the live chat tomorrow night, and we will pray with you live and agree with you with whatever it is that you're seeking God to do in your life. So you don't want to miss that. Tonight at 10 o'clock, in just about 53 minutes, over on DE Studios, we will have a video a video from COT. Remember, everything that's on DE Studios is from the past. It's nothing current. These are things that we've pulled up from COT that we've been allowed to do. We convert the audio files into video for you guys so that you can see them on other platforms. We have permission from COT to do that. That's why we played the little clip at the very beginning so that you guys know that. And we take being able to do that with great honor, and we take that with a privilege. And so when we make that available to you at no cost. We don't take donations for COT, and we don't receive donations based upon COT content. Okay, very important that you guys know that. However, we do provide links in our descriptions box below so that you can go bless Mike and the COT team with what they need, and they've got a very big vision for their ministry there. So check that out in the descriptions below. All right. With that being said, God bless you. Check out all our links below. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us over on Rumble. And both of our YouTube channels, DE Studios, and Patreon. Make sure you follow us on Patreon. Patreon is our main area where we do receive donations over there. If you want to bless us, you can choose to do that. If you don't, that's okay. Patreon's still open for you. The only thing you have to do on Patreon, if you want to access our files of every video we've ever done, we've got thousands of things over there, over 2,000, maybe 3,000 files over there. You have to create a profile, okay? You have to create a profile. It's not open to the public. Once you create a profile, then you can get in, just like you would for Facebook. You can't research another person's Facebook profile without having a profile of your own. That's how we are. So once you get over there, create a profile for Patreon, and then you'll have access to check all those things out here on the channel. And then, you can, if the Lord leads you to bless us, you go for it. If not, no worries. Okay. That being said, everyone, God bless you. Have a great evening. And we will see you guys tomorrow night here on DailyExcellence for Pastor Talk Live. And remember tonight, you may be the only Jesus someone sees, so please keep a smile on your face. Good night, everyone.